Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Put Over Podcast. This is a really awesome, unintentional coincidence that this is, in fact, the third NWA-related interview I've done in a row. Just happy coincidence on my part. Just real quick before we get started, I want to thank Dave Willis, who you folks at home may know as the It's Still Real to Me, damn it guy, who made this possible. I want to give you a direct shout-out. That was really cool. It's one of the best YouTube videos ever. But without further ado, this man is one part of Strictly Business, one half of the Wild Cards, a former NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, former NWA World's Heavyweight Tag Team Champion. I try. And
you got it.
I got it. And May Valentine's boyfriend. Ladies and gentlemen, Royce Isaacs.
That's a lot of... See, I get why you mess up, because there's a lot of different... You have to, go through Strictly Business, Wild Cards, May Valentine. It's a lot. I have quite a few things on my
accolades.
On my resume now.
Yeah.
And accolades. Yeah, for sure, bro. Thanks for having me on, bro. It's cool doing this in like an Instagram live setting, so people can see my sweet bed and my memory foam pillows and my blinds.
I hope you're not self-conscious about that, because this is going to be the first episode with visuals, because I finally figured out how to get that to work.
No, I think it's cool. I don't care. You guys can see my room. I don't care. That's dope. I like my room. It's huge, so I'm happy. In California, this is living like a king, because everyone has low ceilings and no roofs. I'm all the way with it, bro.
Absolutely. And speaking of California, we've actually met before once or twice. You probably don't remember me, but you used to be the... Okay, there's another one that I have to say really carefully. The United Wrestling Network Heritage Champion. You made the rounds at both Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and I think I saw you once or twice in Arizona when I used to do ring crew there. That has been a common theme this season so far.
Yeah, man. My time with the United Wrestling Network, doing Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, Championship Wrestling from Arizona, doing Rocky Mountain Pro in Denver, all that stuff was really cool, and I got to do some really dope stuff. So, I mean, it's one of those places that I really appreciate my time there, and definitely, I miss being there. And they both still have, all three of them still have great shows that you can catch. I want to say they're all on YouTube if you want to catch them.
Yeah, I believe that's a recent development, because I remember when I was doing ring crew there, trying to find it wasn't as easy. So they're definitely noticing that this is a better platform.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah. And I think you still can go on Fight and watch it, but I watch stuff on YouTube. YouTube's the easiest, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. It didn't used to be this easy, especially with wrestling, when there was a period of time when you literally could not make money wrestling on YouTube. You couldn't do it. It would be instantly demonetized.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It seems like they're even outside of that, on streaming services, there are a lot of options now that are really good for watching wrestling specifically. Like, I know Independent Wrestling TV is doing really well. There's been a few other different streaming services. A lot of people have their own streaming services. DDT, which is a place I've worked in the past. In Japan, they have DDT Universe, I believe. They have their own streaming service. There's a lot of different places that have their own brand of streaming service that you can, watch whatever shows on, which is great. Like, the more options there are, the better. And the more that everyone eats, everyone can eat. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Obligatory shout out to Power Slam, who helps the show exist. That is also a wrestling streaming service, which you guys can check out. Sorry I had to do it.
Yeah, plug your stuff for sure.
Make the money where you can. But, alright. Now, obviously, a lot of people now know you, who didn't before, through the National Wrestling Alliance, one of the oldest promotions in the world, definitely in the United States, by leaps and bounds, with one of the oldest heritages. It's an amazing thing to see it come back in the past few months, which, in that time, you've been through a lot.
Yeah, dude.
I can't even understatement that. Like, you've been through so much in just a few months.
Yeah, man. I think it's been a pretty wild ride, but the good thing is, I think it's almost perfect and indicative of how an episode of NWA Powerrr is. hopefully most of the viewers have actually seen Powerrr before, but if they haven't, it's one of those things that it's like it's so fast paced. Like it's like you know, there's no entrance music, so it's like boom, you're in the ring, boom, you're wrestling, boom, you're on to the next thing. It's like the interview segment, which leads right into another match or another angle happening. So like it's like a crash test, and I mean that in the best way possible. It's like really like you can't take your eyes off of it, and it's really chaos, but you know, kind of where it's going or what's going to happen next. So I personally, like, it doesn't surprise me that there's been so much craziness going on. I'm glad that, you know, I mean, like, it's I don't know, it makes it more enjoyable that way, I feel like.
Absolutely. There's, it's kind of like, okay, the best television analogy I can think of would be the show, and I don't mean this as content-wise, obviously, but just in the way it flows, would be Breaking Bad, in the sense that, like, you can get some other shows, this is like a whole season, but for Breaking Bad, it's like 3 or 4 episodes. And NWA is exactly like that, in the sense that it's moving along as quick as it can, which isn't a bad thing, especially it makes binging and catching up, especially through the power of YouTube, way easier.
Absolutely. And I think we live in an era where it's hard to keep people really entertained for a long period of time. It's hard to keep people's like interest levels. So if everything is like, we don't give anyone a chance to just like get on their phone and lose interest in the show, and all of a sudden you look back up and you're like, oh, this match is like halfway through and I have no clue what's going on, because it's walking out, boom, the match is happening, boom, they're at the table giving an interview or whatever. It's like, it's, even though it's an old school show, I feel like it's paced very contemporarily, where it keeps your interest, it holds your interest, and it keeps your interest, and you don't really have time to like lose interest or do something else, you know?
Absolutely. That's one of the most that's one of the best things about the new Powerrr. I don't mean to sound like I'm bootlicking or anything. This really is like, I have full creative control over my show. I'm not just trying to give something good press because, you know, whatever. I mean, it really is my favorite thing in wrestling right now. But anyways, one of the best things about it is just the how it is a very old school aesthetic, very old school style, but then a lot of things are made for a modern audience, which isn't going to lose them, because you could be, it's almost like the Nintendo model, if you're a gamer, would be a pretty good analogy, to where it's trying to appeal to everyone and has somehow figured out just that perfect balance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's one of those cases where what's old is new again, and at the same time, like, we've stayed really true to our old school roots, but we have enough of a, you know, young talent and new people that are doing a modern, you know, modernized wrestling, that it is really a good hybrid where it becomes something fresh out of that. Like, you combine old school, new school, and you get boom, 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 something actually fresh and new. So I'm glad to be a part of that, and some really cool stuff's been happening, man. Like, Strictly Business is the top faction clearly in the NWA, and I'm really glad to be a part of that. And, you know, getting to work with Tom quite a bit. Tom is the fucking man. Like, he's a vet, and he knows what he's doing, and I don't know, I'm really glad to have him as my partner in crime that has my back. And May, you know, May's been a blessing as well. Like, there's certain people I don't think people know about May outside of wrestling, but she's done some really cool stuff. She's written actually a couple books. She's done numerous Rolling Stones interviews, like where she got the Brazilian Rolling Stones cover for doing an interview with Damien Eccles, who was one of the West Memphis 3. Yeah, like, May has, like, outside of wrestling, been a thing for a long time. Done some really cool stuff. So it's, I mean, I'm surrounded by really cool people, and I feel like, you know, like I'm a knight with armor surrounding me. You know what I mean? Like, I have a rock solid, you know, support system.
See, I'll have to look into May's history later. That's actually incredibly fascinating. But let's take back to why we started talking about the length of the show. You've been through a lot, was my original point, and you've been through a lot really quickly. I've seen every NWA episode to date, and I'm gonna try and give a summary of what you've been through. Emphasis on try. If I miss anything, please correct me. Okay. So prior to the series, you and Thomas Latimer had won a tournament, become the NWA Tag Team Champions, and start the show as the champs. Later on, you guys would become involved in a feud with Rock and Roll Express, who were also simultaneously starting to have some beef with Nick Aldis, which would explain the later link in Strictly Business, which Nick Aldis is really, really good at making people upset. That's not an insult. I mean, he's just really good at getting people's attention, is what I mean. So getting Marty Scurll's attention, or vice versa, that by that point I'm starting to get a little confused as to who got who mad first, but I don't even think that matters anymore. And now you're in the feud with Villain Enterprise. It's very, very, very condensed, and somewhere in there you started showing up with May Valentine as you started your singles career after losing the titles to Rock and Roll Express. This show gets really deep really quickly.
Yeah, dude. So
I don't think I missed anything in there.
I have some small corrections there.
Okay.
So what happened? I guess to go in order. The first thing isn't a correction, but I met Aldis when I wrestled him actually at Championship Wrestling for Hollywood, and it was one of those things that that was a big match for me, and I didn't at the time I knew it was a big match. I didn't know how big it would end up for me because that was one of the main connections that I think led to me obviously working with the NWA. My first time working with the NWA directly was at the Crockett Cup last year. And that's me and Tom went all the way to the finals. We actually lost to Brody and PCO in the finals. But we were the wild card team. Like before we were the wild card, we were just a team that won the wild card battle royal, and we kind of embraced that wild card role. And we're like, no, this is us. We are like, you look at us. We had never tagged before, but we are kind of that wild card. Like you don't know what angle we're coming at you from. Kind of feel to us. So it was like, let's own this. Let's make it ours. From there, at a Ring of Honor event, we actually beat Brody and PCO.
I remember this now. This is now starting to connect.
It's. I mean, you were trying to remember a whole like timeline of things, so I get it, my man. And then from there, yeah, we started out the tag team champions on the inaugural NWA Powerrr. We did lose them to the Rock and Roll. And then from then we've been feuding kind of back and forth with them, and then Eli Drake and James Storm kind of swooped in, and now they're the tag team champions. So obviously this year at Crockett Cup, which is coming up April 19th, if anyone can know, tickets are up on the National Wrestling Alliance website. It's in College Park, Georgia. It's going to be a freaking good time. I already know some friends from all over, even the West Coast, that are definitely making the trip out to Georgia to see that. It should be a freaking dope show. I'm super pumped up for it. To me, the Crockett Cup is like the wild card event. Like that's last year we made it to the finals without having teamed together before. This year, having teamed together, like this is our chance to show our stuff, you know, on our big stage to make our names felt again. So I think it's wild card season. I think that if anything less than win the Crockett Cup would be a big disappointment to me, and I know that for Tom as well. Like we have our eye on the prize, we're focused, and that's what we're doing. Is we're trying to come home with the cup, and we're trying to come home with the championships. You know?
Yeah, it's been it's a wild ride watching the NWA. Everyone should be excited for Crockett Cup. There's experienced tag teams, new tag teams coming. Again, this isn't shilling. I don't work for the NWA. I'm just really excited.
No, absolutely, and I guarantee if you watch any NWA Powerrr, I guarantee there'll be some surprises. You know what I mean? Like I guarantee there'll be some stuff some teams that show up that you wouldn't expect. Obviously, I can't say anything, spoil anything, but the NWA always does a really good job. Like we had Scott Steiner come on as a member of Strictly Business for an episode, and he was at the last tapings as well. Unfortunate surprise for us is Brody King showed up at the last tapings. But, it's like the NWA, I think, has done a really good job so far of under-promising and over-delivering. So, for our first time in a new NWA doing a show of our own outside of the Georgia Public Broadcasting Station, outside of our home for Powerrr, you better believe there's going to be some cool surprises and some little the fans are going to leave the Cry Cup really appreciating NWA brand and think, damn, that was a hell of a show.
Absolutely, and if I have this correct, this is going to be the first NWA event since the start of Powerrr not to take place at the studio. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We've done a couple of internet pay-per-views, but both of those were still at the same spot at Georgia Public Broadcasting, and then this time we're actually venturing outside of that. So I'm excited for that. I think that's huge. I'm glad it's a tag team tournament that I get to really show off my stuff at, because it's like I said, this should be the wild card event. So that's what I'm looking to make it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Let's actually touch on the studio for a second, because this is kind of a novel thing that used to be really common, but really isn't anymore. The only show to do that in recent memory for me is the unfortunately no longer with us Lucha Underground. I weep so hard for it. But back to my original point, though. Yeah. If Thunder's watching, I've appreciated you for quite some time. But anyways, back to my original point. It's really difficult thing to do, and I can understand why. A set can get a little samey when you do it over and over again, and it's really got to have the personality to carry itself almost like another character in the show. What are your thoughts?
I personally, I really enjoy studio wrestling. I think that one of the strengths has been having this intimate, I would say, audience. Like we don't have this giant arena. It's like you're right there, you're close to the fans. It's like the fans are the third member in the match almost, or in the show. Most of the fans, like if someone's heckling you, like you know who that is because you've seen that guy, because he's right next to the ring and he's been there for 3 days straight watching the tapings. I think when you listen to the show, you hear a live audience that really cares about what's going on, whether it's hating the bad guys or loving the good guys or whatever it is. Like, I think it's really important to have, especially when maybe you're watching it on YouTube at home later, you're hearing the crowd react in real time, and it's like, this is, even though it's like a tape thing that you're just watching in your house, like, I think it personally helps me when I hear a crowd really getting after something or really getting into an angle. Like, there's no one that's there just like chilling on their phones or, you know, playing with a beach ball or whatever, or like they're invested in what's going on. And I think that helps everyone, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a benefit for us. Obviously, I'm really excited to also get outside there and do the Crockett Cup, but at the same time, I think for that weekly episodic TV program, the right setting is something where it's a little more intimate. And I love Lucha Underground as well. Lucha was great. I think that a Championship Wrestling from Hollywood does a good job with their version of the studio wrestling as well. So I will say that the NWA does it in their own way that I think is unique, and I think that's come across, and it has its own brand. And I think that's a big part of why it's been so successful. Is it's not just trying to be another like WWE Light or whatever. It's trying to be the best NWA, which I think the proof is in the pudding, and that's why there's been such a good response to it.
Absolutely, and now that I just thought about this somehow for the first time since NWA has started, this is coming at an interesting time in just pop culture history when you think about it, because this is an era where if you're watching movies, like a good 80% of them use a recognized name. I'm not saying NWA is doing the same thing, not at all, because they've really been around this long, but in a weird way, it kind of unintentional, good thing happening. It's capitalizing on, just its own power in a modern setting.
No, absolutely. Like you said, it's the oldest name in wrestling in the U.S. that's still going, and we have that new kick to it, and I mean things have just been steadily, business is booming for us. So it's awesome, man.
All right. So let's go back to that timeline for a minute. I keep getting excited and sidetracked. But anyways, back to the timeline real quick of what's happened so far in NWA. What's kind of cool about your position is that you've basically been there not just for the beginning of Powerrr, but for everything big in Powerrr. You know, you've been a big part of the Strictly Business, era, I guess I'll call it. But let's just go back to the beginning, which I guess would start with, Wildcard joining Strictly Business. How exactly did that come about?
I think that's one of those things that, people don't realize, but, Tom and Nick have been close for years. Like, that's one of those things, like, they've been really tight. They both came out of the UK scene. And then, obviously, their paths diverged for a little bit, but they've been tight for years. With, me and Nick, it was obviously, there was a time when we were wrestling against each other. We only wrestled once, so it wasn't like, oh, we had this rivalry, but we were familiar, and there was a respect there. And as it was obviously revealed as well, Camille and Tom are dating.
Yes. Which,
that's all four of us now. So it was one of those things where it just made sense, where we were all in terms of in the NWA, we were all in similar positions where we had been there before Powerrr had started. We were already all things before Powerrr. So even for a new promotion, we're almost like a resurgent promotion, I should say. We were like the old money of it, where it's like we already had, we'd already, kind of got our spots and taken our places. And I'm glad that there's all this new talent. I'm glad that there's other people in the NWA that are bringing new eyes on it, and that, like the Zicky Dices and the Ricky Starks, they're great. At the same time, understand that, like, this is our house, so you got to show us the respect and, take your shoes off at the door kind of thing.
I can understand that, or the more appropriate, wipe your feet on the apron before you get in the ring. Old school sign of respect.
Yeah.
I may be young, but I've done my homework.
You've done the ring crew, man.
Yep. I did compete for a short time, but I don't show that off because I was horrible.
Hey, the good thing, at least you realize that there's a lot of people that kind of suck and don't. So, without getting too much into that, I think that it's good for everyone to learn wrestling to a degree, to understand what it's all about and how it feels to do all this stuff, because it's a really intense physical sport. But it's for everyone in some sense, but it's not for like competing is hard. Competing is really tough on your body, and it takes a special kind of person to be able to perform wrestling. It's not just not just everyone can get off their couch and do it. Whatever,
Right. I think a good analogy. I keep coming up with these silly analogies, but if you've ever seen the Disney film Ratatouille, they explain at the end of the movie the phrase "anyone can cook." It doesn't mean everyone is capable. It means no one is excluded.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a really good way to put it.
I'm way too good.
No, your metaphors are weird, but they're on point, so I'm not mad about it.
All right, back to our little timeline. And then there was... It all starts with Tim Storm, who you gave up the old money, I guess, short little analogy there. He's kind of the oldest money, if you... that's not a gag or a jab, but I mean literally... before Aldis held the title, he had to get it from Storm. So that rivalry is literally older than Powerrr for Strictly Business and Tim Storm.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I respect Tim Storm. Tim Storm's a great competitor. I've had some good matches with Tim Storm. That said, it's one of those things Tim just, he didn't fit the dynamic of Strictly Business, so it just, if you're in the way, then you're going to get rolled over regardless. But I definitely have to show him respect, because him and Nick were a big part of helping put the NWA back on the map. And, Tim's been around a long time, and he's been really good for a long time, and he still takes great care of himself. Obviously, the proof is in the pudding there. And, he's the kind of guy that I would wrestle anytime, anywhere. And that's both out of a place of respect and out of a place of, it's Strictly Business and he's not in Strictly Business kind of thing,
Right. Which then, this is the part I keep getting mixed up in. I don't know which came first. It was either Villain Enterprises or May Valentine. I'm pretty sure it was Villain Enterprises. See, even you're having trouble with this, and it happened to you.
Yeah, no, I have the excuse of I've been dropped on my head, numerous occasions. You have a young, healthy brain, so that's how it evens out there. I want to say that Villain Enterprises, Marty showed up at our first pay-per-view Into the Fire at the end of that. So technically the seed was planted there, even though nothing really, there was no physicality, no one else from Villain Enterprises was there. May didn't show up till the next episode of Power after that. And then, obviously, there's been a lot more that's happened in the interim between Villain Enterprises and Strictly Business.
All right, so I'm trying to figure out how to word this question. Where is your head exactly in a rivalry like this that is so simple yet so complex? On the surface, it's just about two men fighting for one of the most important prizes, not just in wrestling today, but in wrestling history. Two men with a past. But on top of that, there's Ring of Honor versus National Wrestling Alliance, which has made it far more complicated and far more chaotic. Where is your head at in this tangled web?
The thing is, at the end of the day, it's more complicated than that, because me and Tom want to get the tag titles back, and currently Eli Drake, James Storm hold those, and they're NWA talents. At the same time, I would really like a rubber match with PCO and Brody and their Ring of Honor talent, or really any iteration of Flip and Marty and Brody and PCO, Villain Enterprises. I think not only would we bring the best out of each other, but I think, what's up, Ricky Starks? He just said hello on the live chat. So,
hey, Ricky.
Man, I would love to punch him in the face sometime. But he's an NWA guy. You know what I mean? So I think it's one of those things that strictly business versus the world, strictly business versus everyone. But at the same time, to me, the money feud is strictly business and Villain Enterprises, because you have on one side, Lex Luthor, and on the other side you have the Suicide Squad. So
ooh. I can't tell if that was just an analogy or a jab. When you
it can be both.
It's fitting given the situation.
Yeah.
All right, and
yeah, Ricky Starks, I would love for it to be Ricky and Sticky forced to team up in a weird oddball tag. Me and Tommy, and then we could just put the boots to him. You know what I mean?
That would make it easier.
My analogy was terrible. The only thing that was terrible is Ricky Starks has this damn New Orleans cake with a baby in it, and it looks like a purple glazed donut. And it's not even good. It doesn't taste good. I threw it out.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry to me. Feel sorry for him.
I can't help but I kind of agree with that sentiment. Now that you've said it, I can't unsee it. Just that kind of thing. And now he's gone.
Ricky Starks is leaving.
He knew he couldn't come back from that. In the visual version of this episode, I'm just going to do that old meme where it's it turns black and white, it shows date of birth, date of death, and it's what you say?
He didn't even leave. Gosh darn it.
Oh, he sent a request.
Can we do a three-way? Is that...
Unfortunately, we can't, which I'd like to bring up, because I'd absolutely love to do that. But, Mr. Starks, I'm a journalist. I'm not taking sides on purpose, but hear me out. We can do this another time. That I can promise you.
There we go.
Anyways.
There we go. Skyler's the bench, so you can trust him, Ricky. It's cool.
Yes. So let's go back to the timeline, and the last little piece of the puzzle that we wanted to get back on was May Valentine.
Yeah.
So...
Oh, yes.
I don't necessarily know how this story goes, because it's, not very publicized. She, like you said, did not really appear for a wrestling audience until she appeared on Powerrr. So, if you could, I'd like to leave this story to you.
May's been great. It was cool bringing my girl to NWA and showing her off, and now, people know a little bit more of her story, and a lot of people don't know the backstory with her being an author and all this other cool stuff that she's done, but looks can be deceiving because she has a lot more to her than just looks. And I think, she's got her Strictly Pinkness thing going on, and I've really liked seeing her vlogs and her getting to show off her personal side. It's been cool to be able to flex a little different side of Royce Isaacs than I think people have ever really seen as well. It's not many places where you can both have a successful actor as part of a big time faction, and then also being able to show kind of your more sensitive side, or she might say my more jealous side because of Sal Renaro and all that, but tomato potato kind of thing, right?
Absolutely. I'm really digging here. How did you two end up like meeting?
We both live in LA, so it's like a proximity thing. It's one of those things where the world's a lot smaller, especially in the social media world. So it wasn't hard to make a connection. I live like 12 minutes from her in Sherman Oaks, and she's over in Hollywood. In my old area, actually, that I moved to when I first lived in LA. Some of those things where saw each other around and whatnot. Apparently, she likes a good-looking wrestler like myself, and it's been really great since.
Gonna go back to someone you mentioned a second ago, because I actually had several fans ask me to bring this up. Sal Renaro.
Oh God.
All I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Punk bitch. Did I? You were supposed to be PG-13, but Sal Renaro, punk bitch.
Woo!
We're just gonna bend that PG-13 line. Here's the thing: is fellas, ladies, everybody. I think we've all been there where we've had, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. That there's that one friend that maybe they look at your person a little too long, or they have that wandering look that you could tell they're just picturing them together, or maybe they're putting their arm around them just a little bit too tight, and you're like, what's really going on here? So it's like, I can't really fault May. Sometimes I get a little hot, and maybe I speak a little out of turn, some would say, or whatever. But the thing is, it's not her. It's this man, Sal. I'm trying not to curse. This guy, Sal, he's putting his nose in my business, and I'm like, what are you trying to do here? You're trying to sow seeds of dissent. You're trying to act like we're buddies or we're friends. Like, you see him, he acts like he's my buddy. I'm clearly not his friend, and that is a red flag to me. I met the guy when he was talking crap about me on commentary, and then all of a sudden he wants to be best friends with my girl. Like, you tell me how I'm supposed to take that as oh yeah, he's not a threat, he's just a cool guy or whatever. It's like, dude, I don't care. Obviously I don't ever think that he could steal May from me, but it's a matter of just don't get in the middle of it, because you're just trying to cause problems, and it's not good for me. It's not good for my mental health, and our friend on the chat said, I will break his other arm.
Woo! It's got to be a real thorn in the side, especially when, as we previously discussed, you have a lot going on.
I have a lot on my plate, man.
Speaking of a lot of things going on, there was recent news that came up. I wasn't able to go through it as I only had a day to prepare. I think we're doing pretty well, all things considered. About some kind of Jewish athletics award or something like that. If you'd like to clarify what I'm thinking of. It was something Dave Willis was talking about.
I just had an interview with the Jewish Telegraph. It's on Twitter. I want to say maybe it's on Twitter. There's also the audio of it. But yeah, if you want to check that out, it was really cool. Like I am Jewish. Anyone that hasn't followed me that much, I'm a Jewish wrestler, so that's part of my culture, and I've been a big part of my life in a lot of ways, and like the social circles that I run in and whatnot. So it's an interesting interview, I think, anyways. To put myself over, so I'd say check it out. There's a little bit more different kind of perspective on me and my upbringing in my life. So, yeah, man, that's one of my sets of trunks that I wear, and I've worn it on Powerrr before. Actually has my usual logo with the double circle. Actually, is a Star of David with an eye in the middle, and that's actually as a tribute to Max Baer, who was the heavyweight champion of the world, who was also Jewish, and he had a Star of David on his trunk.
I actually do know that name.
In Cinderella Man, but he's not. In real life, he was actually a much more jovial, cool guy, and not as much of a crazy lunatic. But it's a good movie.
Right. I've always I'm gonna sidetrack a little bit completely here. I've always had this fan theory that since I believe the actors who play that character and the Bear, Jew, and Glorious Bastards are the same actor, I've always had this fan theory that that's the same guy, even though Glorious Bastards didn't really happen. Even though that movie's not real.
It's all part of its own thing.
Yeah, it's all part of its own thing, which I thought that, I don't know, I just thought that was fun.
That's actually hilarious. I didn't even think about that before now. But yes, it's the same character continued on.
It's even down to the nickname of Bear, like that just worked out perfectly.
Yeah. No, it really does. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. We're gonna go back a second because I want to go back and talk about the United Wrestling Network. There's so much detail. The United Wrestling Network. It's a place where you got your, start. It's a place where, it's been really kind to me throughout the years, and I'm still interviewing people from it to this day. I'm doing it right now. Where would you say, or I'm sorry, not where, how much would you say you've come up from that point? Like, what did you learn there?
I mean, it was really cool to be part of the United Wrestling Network, especially Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, because they do a similar studio wrestling style taping kind of thing. So that helped me with my TV wrestling. That helped me with everything that prepared me for the studio wrestling at the NWA. A lot of that came from wrestling at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. When I came to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, I lived in Denver, Colorado. That's where I got my start. That's where I originally was trained, and I've been traveling and doing shows. I had done a few tours of Japan with DDT Pro Wrestling, which was really cool. But at the same time, there was nothing that was going to prepare me to work a TV studio style, quite like working a TV studio wrestling format, which is what Championship Wrestling from Hollywood has been doing for over 10 years now, even back when they used to be, I want to say, NWA Wrestling from Hollywood or something like that. And so, I mean, I was there for a little over 2 years, and it was a really, really good time for me. I had a really good run on top there as the United TV champion and the Heritage champion for a bit, and I got to work with some really amazing talents like Scorpio Sky and Andy Brown and Bateman, who now he's with Ring of Honor. So, I mean, that would be another cool one that I would love to run back now that we're both, at our respective companies. Ray Rosas, I think, is a really underrated guy that's still there. So there's some really, really amazing talent at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and they do that really classical studio wrestling style that the NWA does. So it's cool, man.
I didn't mean to laugh there. Souk Magica says you'd be great as the next Magnum PI.
I was like, I can't look at this right now, or I'll pop instead of answering your question.
All right. We're starting to run a bit low on time, but I'm just going to go through the stragglers that I've kind of had a hard time including in this. One, there is the very, very obvious, really new thing about NWA and its new run, and that's Billy Corgan. It's got to be really odd to be like, hey, my new boss is also the guitar, part of Smashing Pumpkins. What was that like, just to go in and be like, wait, it's who?
I mean, I think it's really cool. I'm 31, so when I was a kid, like, it's one of those things that, to me, like, that was my generation of, like, when I was growing up, like, the Smashing Pumpkins were first starting to make a name. Billy's about to go on tour with Guns N' Roses, which is freaking dope. Like, yeah, man, I met him briefly at Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, because he'd come around when I was wrestling Nick, and I think Tim Storm would come around quite a bit as well. And so I've known him for a little bit, but then through NWA now and working for him, I've gotten to know him better. And that's like, I would never have thought that would be like my boss or someone that like I would, shook hands with, much less like hugged or whatever. Like he's a creative genius, and he's done amazing things with the NWA so far, and it's just really cool to see like his vision like really come to life.
Absolutely. And this is going to be my last question before we move to plug time, where you just get to say everything you want to tell the people to watch. You literally put yourself over. It's called the Put Over Podcast, for God's sakes. This is a request more than anything. Could you please talk to someone, anyone, and put out Strictly Business jackets to buy? I don't care if it's chalkline prices. I want a Strictly Business jacket so bad. This is going to be my one fanboy moment for the whole thing. I just want a Strictly Business jacket.
Bro, I understand. I think those things are sweet. I wear mine constantly. Like, you'll see pictures of me where like, oh, you're just hanging out wearing that. I'm like, yeah, damn right. So I know that for a fact. Maureen, our merch, and she also. I don't want to say her title wrong. Maybe she's producer. I don't know. I messed it up, I'm sure, already. But she's basically like third in command at NWA behind Lagana and obviously Corgan's at the top there. Maureen's great. She does a great job with all the merch orders and all that stuff. She's working on it right now, trying to find a way that I think her thing is trying to find something where she doesn't have to do chalk line type prices and still get something put out there that fans can get, because they're sweet. I've always honestly wanted to have a track jacket, which is a weird thing to say, but all it took was 30 years of life.
I got my Friday the 13th track jacket right here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They're freaking sweet, and especially when you have a group of people and they're all matching, then you're like, hell yeah, squat up.
Yeah, at a recent taping of another show, I don't know if I'm allowed to say names, someone kind of jacked the tracksuit style, so clearly they're really cool.
They're clearly really cool, and while I will say that obviously we didn't invent wearing a track jacket in wrestling. No, we certainly didn't. I will say it would be cool if like you got your own colors at least or something, like, I'm not trying to be a dick, but it's like I'm not saying it's a bite or it's this, that, whatever, but like, come on, like, at least like get a little bit of a different design or different colors or something, man. Whatever though, like, hey, I think what they're doing over there is great. I think that it's a crazy talented show, so there's no shot there. It's just, keeping it real.
All right, and now we're here, so thank you very much, Royce, for coming on to the show. Thank you again, Dave, for setting this up. I kid you not, man. This is that's such a cool thing for you to do. Both you guys. Thank you very much.
Dave's a man. I appreciate him doing that for sure.
Absolutely. And you've got plug time. If you got anything specific you'd like to tell the people to go out and do.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not already following me on here, at Royce Isaacs, give me a follow. If you're not following me on Twitter, at Royce Isaacs, give me a follow. If you want a wildcard shirt or a Royce Isaacs shirt or a signed 8x10 or anything like that, DM me. I'll get back to you ASAP. I have all kinds of sizes and a couple different pictures and all that stuff. And I love my fans, so feel free to reach out if you need anything.
All right, and thank you very much, folks, for tuning in to the Put Over podcast. I've been watching the comments. I promise you. I know we didn't get to a lot of them, but I noticed how many there were, and I'm excited to see the numbers. I hope you guys who tuned into Powerrr instead of this tune in later. I'd be very excited to share with you what I've done here. And one last thing before I go, Ricky, call me. We'll see you guys.
Hey, call him 1-800-START line.
We'll see you guys another time.